everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. I am your host John, and today here on the channel we're going to be talking about 2002's Panic Room and its brand new Sony 4K Steelbook that just came out. But before we get into that 4K Blu-ray review, I always like to give a quick film review, and today is no different. So if you don't want to know anything about the film Panic Room, you're just here for that 4K Blu-ray review, you guys can skip ahead right now. So back in 2002, David Fincher's follow-up to Fight Club was Panic Room, and this was a much smaller movie than Fight Club was, something very similar that David Fincher did with the movie Seven. Seven was like one of those big movies, and then he made kind of a strong thriller in 1997 called The Game, which has a much smaller cast, and we're not really dealing with too many different locations like we are in the movie Seven. And I think he did the exact same thing with this movie right here. Fight Club had these big ideas, these big set pieces, and for the most part, this movie takes place in just one home, which was a set that they actually built. And it's really just 5 actors in this movie. We add a 6th, and we add some other characters that have small roles, but for the most part, it just stars Jodie Foster, a recently divorced mother. She's married to a big-time pharmaceutical guy, so she's got a lot of money. The apartment that she's buying for her and her daughter is just ridiculously sized for just the two of them, but it does have a panic room in it, and that obviously will play a part in the film. Her daughter is played by a very young Kristen Stewart, so the two of them are going to be moving into this house. It's just going to be the two of them. Again, way too much space for 2 people. It's got the panic room in it. They got some money, so maybe some people would eventually come after them. They feel a little bit safer having that in the house, but, it's the first night, so they don't know how to use it. And then what do you know? On that very first night that they're sleeping in their brand new house, 3 robbers decide to show up. One played by Forrest Whitaker, the other one played by Jared Leto with cornrows, who gives a great performance in this movie, by the way. It might be a little bit overacting, but everybody else is kind of playing it so calm and a little bit reserved. It's kind of nice to see Jared Leto kind of pop off a little bit in this movie, so I really appreciated him. And then the third robber is played by Dwight Yoakam, the country singer, and he's scary as hell in this movie as Raoul.
I'm Raoul.
So it's really funny to see him in this. He was an actor for a while there. He's also in the movie Wedding Crashers. You might not realize how big of a country singer he is, but if you've ever seen the movie Terminator 2, the song playing on the jukebox when Arnold Schwarzenegger first shows up at that motorcycle bar, Guitars and Cadillacs is playing in the background, that's Dwight Yoakam. So a few years later, he would end up in a David Fincher movie as a scary as hell robber. But this is Jodie Foster's movie. She plays that strong character that we know Jodie Foster to play. We know that she's going to save the day. She's a strong mother. Very similar to a lot of arcs in movies. We don't think she's that strong in the beginning. But her love for her daughter, Kristen Stewart, in this movie also has diabetes, which is nice that we have the watch on her that keeps track of her blood sugar. It's a literal ticking clock for the audience, so that's a nice little touch in the screenplay. And the screenplay for this movie is just very tight. Like I said, we're really only dealing with a few actors, a very contained story. It's not a big story or anything like that. There's just $3 million in that panic room, and our 2 leads don't know that there's $3 million in that panic room. Turns out to be more than $3 million, by the way, but they don't know it, so when people start robbing their house, they go in the panic room, and these people didn't think that anyone was supposed to be there because Jared Leto's an idiot. So unfortunately, that's our dilemma. It really could be solved if they could just communicate with each other. We see the Forrest Whitaker's the more sensitive of these robbers. He's really just there because he needs the money. Jared Leto's just a cocky motherfucker, and Raoul's just Raoul, man. He's just there to, he just cause chaos. He's a lot like Waingro in the movie Heat. He's just kind of a loose cannon, a wild card, and they have very similar haircuts as well. And, a movie like this just reminds me so much of a great Hitchcock thriller. And, all the great directors make their own version of a Hitchcock thriller. Every great director, like Martin Scorsese made Cape Fear. He takes so many shots out of great Hitchcock films. Brian De Palma's whole career could be credited to Hitchcock. He's the modern day Hitchcock. And, David Fincher has made quite a few thrillers himself. I just talked about The Game. He made this. And this movie also, as far as the cinematography goes, looks very similar to 2023's The Killer, which is fascinating to me. He's using a lot of the same ways he lights the movie Panic Room, especially that one scene in The Killer where he's fighting the guy. That interior looks very similar to the interior in Panic Room. So you can just see that David Fincher, he's mastering his craft as he's just going forward. This is kind of still the early days of David Fincher, but this is the 5th film he's ever directed, and you can still see some stuff, the way he lights a scene, the way he blocks a scene. It's still very similar to movies like The Social Network and The Killer. So he just knows how to shoot a movie. They always look great. You can always find the light source in the room. It looks very natural. And, David Fincher's a perfectionist, so of course this movie is going to look great. It sounds phenomenal. Incredible sound design. a great score to help this movie, just kind of building that dread a little bit. You kind of have to have that tension there throughout the entire film, or the film doesn't work. For a very contained story, it wouldn't work without that tension throughout. We have to have those certain scenes where they have to leave the panic room. That's why the diabetes is a great part of the screenplay as well, because, you can't stay in there. Really, that would solve the whole story if they just stayed in there. There's no way to get in. It's revealed that Forrest Whitaker builds panic rooms, and he knows that there's absolutely no way in, so you have to try and convince them to get out. So that's where all the tension in this movie is built up. It builds up to a conclusion you kind of would expect. It has a phenomenal shot towards the end of the movie when Forrest Whitaker is being arrested. That beautiful shot in the rain with the wind blowing all of the bear bonds around. That is an incredible shot. I don't know how they got that. I mean, again, this is a controlled environment. These are sets that they built, so I'm sure that there's a way. There's some movie magic in that. I just thought it looked absolutely beautiful. The only thing that really doesn't hold up in this movie very well is the CGI. It's 2002, so 2002 CGI is going to be present in this movie, and it's very noticeable, really, on like Jared Leto when there's the fire, that blue flame that happens when they blow up the propane tank. That doesn't look too great. They're using some really creative technology with the CGI so we can move room to room, moving through things, and it looks very, very natural, but there will be points where you'll be like, that's pretty obvious CGI. Still looks better than most 2025 CGI, so I can't knock it too much. But the thing with me in CGI is I'll always notice it, and my brain will always like kind of register and be like, that doesn't look real. And, it's just kind of a flaw in me, but I always have to point that out because I know other people are very similar to me who will always notice the CGI. And this is a very CGI heavy movie. You just might not realize it. But overall, it is a fantastic David Fincher film, one that I love revisiting. This is probably like the 7th or 8th time that I've seen it. I remember when it first came out on DVD back in the day, had a great time then, and I still really enjoy this movie now. It's just a very, very, very well-crafted film with some good performances in there and a great performance by Jodie Foster. This is one of her best performances, and it's really something that needs to be appreciated. But overall, the film is fantastic. If you've never seen Panic Room, I could definitely recommend the movie even without watching this brand new 4K steelbook from Sony that we're going to talk about right now.
What is he doing?
So here it is, David Fincher's Panic Room on 4K Steelbook, and this is from Sony. This is also the same day that they are going to be releasing The Social Network on 4K Steelbook. I actually have that same exact 4K right here from Columbia Classics Volume 2. It's the same exact 4K Blu-ray, so if you're picking that up and you already have this, there's no reason to grab that. There's nothing different about it. It's not a League of Their Own situation or Bram Stoker's Dracula situation where they added Dolby Vision. Nope, it's the exact same scan with the exact same HDR, so no need to upgrade this 4K Blu-ray. Now, Panic Room, on the other hand, Panic Room is the second brand new David Fincher movie coming out on 4K Blu-ray in 2025. Last year, we also added Zodiac, which I did not think was a great 4K Blu-ray. That one came out from Paramount. 7, I thought, was a phenomenal 4K Blu-ray. Now, this one, very similar to 7, was supposedly overseen by David Fincher. Now, I don't think that's true. I think it's like David Fincher overseeing something like James Cameron supposedly gives his stamp of approval to every single Terminator film that ever comes out, despite the fact that for the most part, they're usually garbage since Terminator 2, but he still says it's a great movie. I think it's kind of something similar to that, where he approved he approved the transfer, but he wasn't overseeing the entire transfer like he was with 7. Because 7 is like a brand new scan that took years to make that one work. This one was kind of like, it's coming out on 4K Blu-ray. Now, I did remember from like about 2022 that this was rumored to be coming to 4K Blu-ray. It was actually to the point where I was going to do a complete David Fincher rewatch with Panic Room coming to 4K Blu-ray to celebrate that. Took a few extra years, but thankfully we did get this one finally on 4K Blu-ray. It is a 2K intermediate, so this isn't in native 4K or anything like that, and that does make a lot of sense. This is kind of something that before we get into it, we got to talk a little bit about, because this is the same thing that happened with Zodiac, that being a 2K intermediate, not native 4K. When this movie was filmed in 2002, it was filmed on film, but then it was transferred digitally. And because this movie is like so CGI heavy, it's very similar to Quentin Tarantino films like Inglourious Basterds and Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. Like, those movies are 2K intermediates, and they're noticeable 2K intermediates, but they probably, especially Inglourious Basterds, wouldn't translate well if it's a 4K native, because if it's native 4K, because of all the CGI in that movie, it's not going to it's going to take a lot more work than I think that they're willing to do. That's the thing. Like 7, you had to really go in there, go frame to frame, make so many different adjustments. Whereas this, it looks like a team went in there, they transferred this, they upgraded a lot of stuff, but it's not necessarily one of those where, where you would compare it to 7 or anything like that. It was just done a little bit differently. I don't think it's anything compared to like Zodiac, which feels like a lazy release. This just really does feel like your standard 4K Blu-ray release, and I'm really glad that we got it. So before we go any further into those visuals, I just wanted to let you guys know off the top that this is a 2K intermediate, and I saw a lot of complaints about this not being in native 4K. And I just think that there's a good reason for that. It's very similar to how the movie is shot. The movie is a very dark film in general. I saw some complaints out there already from people saying, like, they didn't brighten it up or anything. We got to look at intent sometimes of the filmmaker. David Fincher, when he shot this movie, you could always find the light source of this movie. And I think this kind of is something that we have to look into when it comes to 4K Blu-ray reviews. There's people who review 4K Blu-rays mainly just because of the technology involved, and they're not necessarily fans of the film. And I think they kind of miss the intent of the director sometimes because they haven't seen the film before. So when you blind buy a movie, you think that you're really just looking at the 4K Blu-ray and its technology, and you don't know how the film was actually shot, how the film was made. Now, thankfully, there is a lot of extras on here that explain exactly how this film was made, but I think you need to understand exactly what the film is going for. Certain movies like Heat or Forrest Gump on 4K Blu-ray, those are darker than they've ever looked. This looks just like Panic Room. It looks like how Panic Room has always looked. It was always a dark film in general, so when it came to 4K Blu-ray, you don't want to lose that look. You kind of just want to sharpen things up, maybe fix some of the coloring. Now we have HDR10 and Dolby Vision, so we're going to have a bigger color gamut, and that's the stuff you're really looking for. Now, I only had the previously released DVD. I did not have the Blu-ray that had come out in the past. This isn't necessarily one of the David Fincher films I come running back to all the time. Like I said, I've probably seen it like 7 or 8 times. The movie's been out for 23 years now, so that's like every few years. It's nothing like Seven or Fight Club that I'll watch every single year. Panic Room is just kind of one of those right in the middle with the game that I really enjoy every couple years because it's a straightforward thriller. But when you know the outcome, you can't run back to it every single year. You just really appreciate the filmmaking. And I think understanding this film will really help you to understand this 4K Blu-ray. So right here we have the 4K Steelbook, which I appreciate. It actually looks like a Steelbook. It looks like actual steel. It looks like the Panic Room. I like the artwork on the back as well. You come inside. The disc design's a little bit lazy, and it's really hard to read which one's the 4K Blu-ray disc, which one's the Blu-ray disc, and then which one's the special features Blu-ray disc. But this is the 4K Blu-ray. This is your Blu-ray that'll have the film on it. I believe it's the same exact scan that's on this 4K Blu-ray. I don't think that this is a new scan. I think it's just a downgraded to 2K scan of it. And then right over here we have our special features Blu-ray. There are special features on the regular Blu-ray as well as the entire Blu-ray of special features, because there are a ton of them. We go from pre-production all the way through production. We're going through all of the CGI shots. We're going through all of the special effects, how they set up these shots, how they block these shots, the intent of David Fincher. We even go through the 2K intermediate, how it's transferred from film to digital. All of that is in the extras for this, so the extras are phenomenal. If you're an extras junkie like myself, you are going to love the extras on Panic Room. This is all I ever asked for. Now, none of them are new extras, but they did such a good job back in the day, back in 2002 when DVDs were coming out. That was kind of like the height of it. This is where people were really being sold on the extras, on the special features. They used to load these up. We get nothing like this now, but it's so cool to see them come over to this. Now, is it a little disappointing there's no new ones? I mean, not really, because they literally turned every stone over to help you out when watching this movie. There's nothing about this film I feel like, maybe some other stuff, some interviews with actors would have been a little bit nice. Some modern stuff maybe with Dwight Yoakam and Jodie Foster. Sure, I can complain about that, but it's not worth it with the amount of extras on here. So the extras are just phenomenal. Now the audio, it's a brand new Dolby Atmos track, and I just wanted a little bit more punch with it. It's still pretty good. I just thought maybe a little bit more bass would have been nice. Overall, it's got great sound design in this movie. Or if I look at this compared to The Killer from 2023, I think The Killer's sound design, which I only saw on streaming, was actually better than the sound design of this Dolby Atmos track, which is on an uncompressed disc. So, when you hear things like that, it's a little bit disappointing. But it's still a pretty good Dolby Atmos track. It's just not one that knocked my socks off or anything. It's well mixed. I'm really impressed with how they use the channels. But again, compared to a modern Dolby Atmos track, I wouldn't say that this is something that really blew me away. It's just really solid. Now, the visuals, I thought the visuals were very impressive. Now, they didn't blow me away the entire time, but Panic Room has never looked better than it does right here. Great detail, even from the opening credits that were clearly inspired by North by Northwest. David Fincher always has great opening credits, but you're like, oh wow, this is going to be a good looking 4K Blu-ray, and it really was. Now again, the biggest flaw with this 4K Blu-ray as far as the visuals go are the CGI. They are noticeable, and there will be parts when they're kind of going through the vents, things look a little bit muddy and they don't look like those deep blacks like you're expecting. But we do hit those deep blacks because this is a very dark film overall, and I really appreciated that. But everything is still crisp and clear. I understand some people's complaints about wanting to brighten it up a little bit more, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to disagree just because this is a dark film overall and it's always looked this way. We're just kind of adding to what the film already looked like. The colors now, we have just we just have a wider gradient of colors. It looks a little bit more vivid. It looks a little bit sharper. So I was just overall very, very, very impressed with the visuals. Like I said, is this a 10 out of 10 4K Blu-ray? Is it as good as 7? No, but I would say that this is definitely right in line with the quality of the Social Network on 4K Blu-ray, and it's definitely better than David Fincher's Zodiac on 4K Blu-ray. So right now, if you were to rank the 4 David Fincher 4K Blu-rays, I would go 7 Panic Room, Social Network, and then I would go at the bottom Zodiac, and that's just Paramount being lazy. The other ones are very well done. I think that this is a great release from Sony, as you would expect it to be. It's not their best 4K Blu-ray that I've ever seen. Like La Femme Nikita is a much better 4K Blu-ray that came out last year. I don't like them just putting these out on steelbooks. I think that's kind of a little bit of a cash grab, and unfortunately you're asking people to spend too much money. I think a nice $24 standard edition with a slipcover would have been nicer just for everybody, but we got 3 discs here, something that studios like Warner Brothers never do anymore. You just get that 4K Blu-ray disc. This is a 3-disc set, so you can't complain really overall. I think they did a phenomenal job, Sony. They definitely put out something that's there for the collectors. Sony is one of the best studios, one of the best major studios. That's not a boutique label. I would say them and Warner Brothers put out the best 4K Blu-rays, and this is another great example of that. It's not a perfect 10, but I would still say overall, this is a very solid 4K Blu-ray release from Sony, and I would give it a 9 out of 10. Hey everyone, just popping in at the end of the video for this week's digital code giveaway. In every single video that we do on Friday, we ask you guys 2 digital code giveaway questions. All you have to do is answer one of those in the comment section. As long as you did that, you came back to this video right here where we put your name on a magic wheel. We spun that bad boy 2 times. The 2 names it landed on, they have their choice. The digital codes that you've seen on your screen before you today. And without further ado, let's spin this magic wheel and see who our 2 lucky winners are. Alright, congratulations to Scotty G and the Destroyer. Destroyer has won many times in the past. Longtime channel subscriber. Scotty G, I know you've won in the past as well, so you know how this works. Reach out to me by email address, letstalkentmt@gmail.com. And as long as the other winner doesn't take the digital code that you want, then that digital code is all yours. And guys, before we get out of here today, I just want to tell you guys about our channel members 4K Blu-ray giveaway that we do here on the channel every single month. We kind of made some adjustments to our channel memberships now, so there's some extra videos. If you become just a friend of the channel for 99 cents per month, you'll get our Twin Peaks watch-along videos, and you'll get my new movie reviews over there as well. And then once you go up to the producers tier at $6.99, you'll be entered into our monthly 4K Blu-ray giveaway, and you know, sometimes a Blu-ray in there. But this month, our channel director Kevin Kruger decided to donate Constantine on 4K Blu-ray Steelbook, and this comes out actually today at the time you're watching this video. My review for this will be out tomorrow, so you'll know my full thoughts on the 4K Blu-ray. But the 4K Steelbook will be given away to one of our channel members on the producers tier or higher. We'll put your name on a magic wheel. We'll spin that bad boy the first Tuesday in February. And if you don't want Constantine on 4K Steelbook, we also have Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, The Lost Boys on 4K Blu-ray, The Core on 4K Blu-ray, 2012 on 4K Blu-ray. Good 4K, just I'm not a big fan of the film. The Ring, now this is a Blu-ray Steelbook. I upgraded to 4K for that. And then, of course, the Constantine 4K Steelbook. So you'll actually have your choice. And, you know, if this month's membership does pretty well, we'll be able to get, new movies each and every single month that are as good a quality as Constantine's 4K Steelbook. But as always, guys, there is no pressure to join our channel memberships. Just wanted to let you guys know about all the different tiers and all the different perks. There's also one more tier. That would be the bankroll tier, where you'll find Frank from Frank's Media Reviews and Mr. Smelly Potato. And you guys can find all of the different perks in the comment section below. But I want to thank everybody for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, just don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Get out in those streets. Tell your friends about us. And then we'll be seeing you around.